بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وضل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العسام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأهوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد هاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من غبي سترت وكم من فاده من البلاء أغلت وكم من عثار وغيت وكم من مكروه دفعت وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرت. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أملي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومثالي يا سيدي. فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفزحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودبام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأهوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أهترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، وتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك، وخالفت بعد أوامرك. فلك الهم علي في جميع ذلك، ولا هجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاءك. وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك، وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستغيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ذري، وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي. يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، أبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك. أيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت، أو تبعد من أدنيت، أو تشرد من آويت، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادها، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا، وعلى ضمائر ذات من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طاععا، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنا. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم يا رب. وأنت تعلم ضعفي أن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثوه، يسير بقاء قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي، صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك، وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك، أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك، فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأذجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين، أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفة وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وهبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤملا لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتمثل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي فكيف يبغى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يهرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم زعفه؟ أم كيف يتغلغل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجر زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في إتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات هيهات، ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاهديك وقضيت به من إخلاط معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك إن تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدأ وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما، أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي هتمتها وهكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة في هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته، كتمته أو أعلنته، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرتها بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جباره، وكنت أنت الرغيم علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره، يا رب 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 يا رب. يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناسيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا رب 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 يا رب. أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة إلهي، وبخدمتك موصولة إلهي، وأعمالي عندك مقبولة إلهي، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وهالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معملي، يا من إليه شكوت أهوالي، يا رب 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 يا رب. قم على خدمتك جواره واشدد على العزيمة جوانه، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع عليك في البارزين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة المؤمنين، واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فارد، ومن كادني فكيت، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأغربهم منزلة منك وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجد لي بجودك، واعتف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأغلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة، فإليك يا رب نسبت وجهي، وإليك يا رب مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء، يا من اسمه دواء، وذكره شفاء، وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء، وسلاحه البكاء، يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النغام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بي ما أنت أهله، وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. صلى على محمد وعجل رحم الله من قرأ فاتحة مع الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Jazakallah, Brother Saeed. May Allah accept your recitation. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
وبركاته. التماس سؤال.
Allah Saeed, thank you. خسته نباشید. تقبل الله.
اسکوش حاج آقا. التماس دعا شما جواب.
خدا نگهدار. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. الخطبة الأولى: أنشأ الخلق إنشاء وابتدأه ابتداء، بلا روية أجالها، ولا تجربة استفادها، ولا حركة أحدثها، ولا همامة نفس اضطرب فيها. Alhamdulillah, we ended the first section of the first khutbah of Nahjul Balagha. Moving on to the second section, where Imam Ali alayhi salam now speaks about God's creation, versus how in the first part of this section, in the first section he was talking about God. So the first section was talking about God himself and how God is, and I think that took us 4 or 5 sessions to cover. And then now we're moving on to the second section of Nahjul Balagha, of this khutbah, this first khutbah, where he speaks about creation. Now, before I get into that, I do want to share a hadith with you. Now that we wrapped up that first section of the first khutbah and speaking about God and how God is, there's a hadith I wanted to share with all of you, which, I personally like these these types of hadiths and these types of verses like these, where things are kept to the basics, because we sometimes shoot for the stars. Now, it's good to shoot for the stars, but sometimes shooting for the stars when we don't have what it takes to even make it to the rooftop, yeah, can be a problem. So here in this hadith, it says that جاء أعرابي إلى النبي, a Bedouin, a desert dweller. He approaches Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says to him, علمني, teach me min غرائب العلم. Yes, غرائب is the plural of غريب, something that is not normal, not normative. It's not the conventional, usual thing. Yes, in Farsi we say something is ajib gharib. Yeah, or we have probably this in Urdu as well, and it's an Arabic word, gharib, something that's not familiar, something that is far-fetched, out of reach, not easy to access. Yes. So here, this A'rabi, now A'rabi can really mean desert dweller or Bedouin, and maybe also might mean someone who isn't very learned, isn't very literate, maybe. So they come to this person, to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This person comes to him and says, "Allimni min gharaib al-ilm." Teach me that special stuff. Yeah. قال ما صنعت في رأس العلم حتى تسأل عن غرائبه. Wait a minute, what have you learned when it comes to the foundations of ilm and knowledge? Yes. Ra'sul ilm, ra's in Arabic means head. Here what is meant is, that the main part, the most fundamental and foundational part of knowledge. How much of that do you know that you're now asking for the gharib portion of it? Yes, the occult sciences that I know, things like that. Yeah, you always have some people who, of course, they have the best intentions. They're looking for the special stuff. And they might have that feeling because they feel that, okay, look, all the normal stuff, everyone knows it, but look, nothing, I don't see anything special about all the people out there. So apparently the basic fundamental knowledge is not enough. I need something special so that I'm special, yeah? So I cannot be a normal person. I want to go up, I want to fly. Yes, I want to flap those wings and fly up there. These wings of gharib knowledge, I need to attain them somehow. And lots of times you find this in, lots of times you find this when it comes to the Quran. I personally, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, but I cannot stand it. When I find people speaking about how we need to figure out what the batin and the batin of the batin of the batin of the batin of the Quran is saying in every verse of it. Yeah? What is the super deep esoteric meaning of this verse? Habibi, like, what am I supposed to say to you? Have we even learned the Quran at face value first? Show me literature, hadith, verses of Quran that encourage us to go for the deeper meaning first. Yes? No, it's not the case. As a matter of fact, the fact of the matter is, when you look at these verses and how they're talking about encouraging people to go and learn the Quran because it's bilisan and Arabiyan mubin, it's been narrated, it's been revealed in a simple Arabic language. What that means is that, like, you don't have to kill yourself to understand what it's saying. Yeah, and it's just beautiful how things are kept to the basics when it comes to the Quran, when it comes to everything really in Islam. Yeah, and so this idea of let's go first for the deeper meaning of things, I'm not sure if that is the way to go and that's the priority. No, I personally very humbly disagree. When you find that our scholars also, when they speak of the deeper stuff, yeah, that's for special times. But all in all, they're always focusing on the normal stuff. Let's learn. There's 600 plus pages of Quran. Do I know what these verses are talking about? Do I know what this set of verses that's talking about the Battle of Badr are talking about? This set of verses that are talking about the Battle of Uhud? this set of verses that are talking about Yawm al-Fath, yes, or the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, or the Bay'ah of Ridwan and the Bay'ah of Shajara, all these different verses, yeah, what are they talking about? The verses that are talking about the women, the verses that are talking about how inheritance works, the verses that talk about Bani Israel, what are they trying to tell us? What are they trying to get across to us? Let's look at the wording of the verses. There is so much to get out of the wording of the verses. It's very beautiful. And then here we are. No. I want to know something that Allama Tabatabai does not know. Anyway, here it says, the Holy Prophet ﷺ tells this person, he says, Ma sana'ta fi ra's al-ilm. And I like how the Prophet kind of, calls the person out indirectly. He says, he doesn't say, what do you know when it comes to the ra'sul ilm, the fundamentals. He says to him, Ma sana'ta, what have you done? How much of an effort have you made? It just feels good when you always say something and then it turns out the Holy Prophet also said it. So like right now, I'm always, screaming at the top of my lungs that like, people, we really need to work hard and educate ourselves more and more when it comes to the basics of the religion even. Yeah. Here the Prophet is saying the same thing. He's saying, what have you done? What effort have you made so far? Tell me, so that I can now share with you the gharaib of ilm and knowledge. قال الرجل ما رأس العلم. Okay, I don't have a problem, Rasulullah. Oh Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I don't have a problem with what you're telling me. Tell me, what is رأس العلم? The head of knowledge. Yeah, so that I can pursue it. قال معرفة الله حق معرفته. To know God the way He deserves to be known. Now, of course, we've covered this before. That the Holy Prophet somewhere else, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Ma arafnaka haqqa ma'rifatik." We have not known you, O Allah, the way you deserve to be known. But at the end of the day, I did also speak about this idea of just because you can't know Him completely doesn't mean now you're going to just turn away from Him and not be interested in anything regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have that famous saying in Farsi that goes, if you can't drink the whole ocean or sea, yeah, at least drink enough to quench your thirst. So here, same thing holds. Here when the Prophet is telling him that you should know Allah and learn about Allah haqqa ma'rifati, the way He deserves, meaning as much as you can, trying to get as close as you can to the ma'rifah that He deserves. Yeah, but of course we all know we're not going to make it to the 100% ma'rifatullah. It's not possible. But that's if we can make that our goal and try to move in that direction. So learning about Allah, you see, this person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't say, "Teach me of the gharaib knowledge of God." He didn't say it like that. He said, "Teach me of the gharaib knowledge that you have." Yeah, telling the future maybe. Yes, turning things to gold maybe, things like that. So he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say, "Teach me about Allah and the deeper stuff about Allah." So I don't know. I mean, looking at this hadith, it looks like back then you had the same issues that we have today. People are looking for that person who has that special istikhara, the one that tells you exactly what you have in mind. People today sometimes, they're looking for that special dua that no one else knows, that with it you can cure all the sick, for example. People are looking for that special Ismul A'zam, that with it, wonders can be performed. All right, but it seems like this person has that same mentality. 1400 years ago, he's saying, "Teach me some of those occult sciences, O Prophet, that Allah has taught you." The Prophet says, no. Okay, let's talk about the head of knowledge first. What is the head of knowledge, O Prophet? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Qala ma'rifatullah haqqa ma'rifat. Let's go learn about God first. The way and our goal is not just learn one or two things about Him. No, let's try to get as close as we can to haqqa ma'rifatihi. Yeah. Qala al-a'rabi. So this person says, well, wama ma'rifatullah haqqa ma'rifatihi. When you say learn about God and have knowledge of God the way He deserves, what does that mean? So you see, good questions are like half of knowledge, brothers and sisters. You see this A'rabi, he doesn't just hear the Prophet say something and leave. He asks more. He's interested. And so when the Prophet explains what he means by the head of knowledge, by telling him understanding God, gaining knowledge of God the way He deserves, this Arabi says, okay, well, explain to me, how is that? What does that look like? Yeah, brothers and sisters who sometimes might ask, oh, like, give us a practical takeaway. This is a practical takeaway right now from this hadith. He says, what is ma'rifatullah haqqa ma'rifatihi? قال تعرفه بلا مثل ولا شبه ولا ند وأنه واحد أحد ظاهر باطن أول آخر لا كفو له ولا نظير فذلك حق معرفته. That you know that He has nothing similar to Him, no partner. He is one. He is ahad. He is wahid and ahad, and we've talked about this here and there about what the difference between wahid and ahad is. Zahir, He is apparent. Batin, He's on the outside, He's on the inside. Awwal, akhir, first, last. There is none like Him. La kufwa lahu, no match for Him. La nadhir, nothing like Him. فَذَلِكَ حَقُّ مَعْرِفَتِهِ. So this is proper ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the beginning of the khutbah was all about these things. The Imam really gave us a proper theology lesson in the first section of this first khutbah about God Himself. Why? Because it's the most important form of knowledge one can gain. No matter how much time, brothers and sisters, we put in learning about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I went to this class, I learned about God's justice. But now turns out there's a book by Shahid Mutahari called Divine Justice, Adl Ilahi. Let me read that too. But you already learned about God's justice. No. The more I read about God, the more I want to know. Maybe this book has something extra in it as well. Let me recite the Quran. Let me reflect on the verses. Let me ask questions about this verse, that verse. Oh my God, it seldom happens, but when it does, it makes me so happy when younger brothers or sisters send me screenshots from their Quran apps and they're like, what is this verse talking about? Ooh, I'm so happy when that happens. Once every 6 months, you know. All right, so we're done with the first section of the first khutbah. Let's move on to, and I ended it with that hadith to illustrate how important these basics are, even if it might get repetitive sometimes. But now let's move on to the second section of this khutbah. It says, أنشأ الخلق إنشاءً وابتدأه ابتداءً. Here it says, the Imam says he did insha of khalq. Khalq is a very general and broad scoped term. Okay, khalq means all of creation. That's how I see this term. And there's a reason why I'm emphasizing on this, because we're going to need this later. Ansha al-khalq, right? He brought it into existence. وَابْتَدَأَهُ ibtida'a. Kind of means the same thing. Yeah? He started it from nothing, and he was there from the beginning with it. Okay, now, so he created all of creation. How did he create it? Bila rawiyatin. So you can say maybe here Imam Ali is getting into what they call sifatul fi'l and the attributes of action of God. What does God look like when it comes to His attributes that have to do with creation? Okay. It says He created bila rawiyatin ajalaha, without any need for any prior intellectual endeavor. No thinking is necessary with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, now here Imam Ali is not, he's not giving us the whole argument, all of the premises here of an argument that he's trying to make. He's just pointing out one thing. We are supposed to do the rest of the work upstairs in our minds ourselves. It says, Bila rawiyatin ajalaha, without any thought and any thought process, and without Allah having to, get the ball rolling when it comes to thinking about things. He didn't have to think about anything. In other words, Imam Ali is saying, on one hand, we look around and we see so much beauty, so much organization, so much fine-tuning, so much everything, so much multiplicity. But at the same time, he didn't do it without having, he did it all without having to even think a little bit. And that shows how immaculate his knowledge is. This is the whole argument I'm just giving us right now. Imam Ali points out one premise, which is the key premise. The rest of the premises automatically come. Because sometimes you don't have to think about something, right? I don't know. I want to draw a line. I don't even think about it. It just happens. I'm driving in the street. Yeah? I don't even have to think about pressing the gas or pressing the brakes. It happens automatically. I do it without thought. But drawing a line doesn't require that much. It's not something big. For me, for it to be something pretty extraordinary, if I do it without thought, previous thought. But when you look at the universe, you're like, okay, excuse me, we need to think about stuff before something like this can actually happen. But he says, no. Let me clarify this one point for you. He didn't have to think at all. So the rest of the argument comes automatically. He didn't have to think, but look at how great and magnificent it is, and so he must be magnificent. Like this right here is part of the argument from design. Imam Ali, using 2 words, brings the whole thing. وَلَا تَجْرِبَةً إِسْتَفَادَهَا. Sometimes you can think as much as you want. Still, you won't be able to accomplish a big task, because the only way you can accomplish it is through trial and error. Some things, brothers and sisters, happen only if you do them more than once. And trust me, if you're going to create a universe, there's going to probably be a lot of trial and error involved. All right? You want to make an origami crane, a paper crane, you have to make it several times before you get the lines and the edges perfectly straight. It takes practice. Yeah? And it to be perfect and crisp and like the way it's supposed to look. Practice it several times. Skateboarders, what do? They break half the bones in their body before they can actually pull off a trick seamlessly. Yeah? This is just how it is. You want to create the universe, sometimes you need experience. For sure you need experience. But here it says, first of all, he didn't have to think. Second of all, don't think he doesn't need to think because he's done it 100 other times. No. Him creating this creation, all of it, is not based on experience either. Wow. Because someone might say, maybe Allah has created other universes. Maybe he's created 100 parallel universes. Right? And so now it's a piece of cake for him. Right? But no, it says it's not based on experience. Meaning, even if he was to create 100 universes, the first one, the way he creates it, was as easy as the last one. Okay. وَلَا حَرَكَةٍ أَحْدَثَهَا. This is something that was pointed out earlier in the first section of the khutbah as well, that Allah does things without having to resort to any motion and movement. Here it says he created without thinking, without experience, and without any motion or movement. So when this is said, you're like, okay, man, what is going on? And I like the logical sequence Imam Ali is observing here. Because sometimes sometimes you have to think about something before you make it. Sometimes you don't have to think about it because you have experience. You do it without thought even. He says no experience needed. Sometimes thought, experience, we're taking care of that. But then you do it without even having to move a muscle. Okay, this is next level now. If no thought and no experience wasn't enough, this is enough to make it next level. For you to do all of this without harakah, without any motion and movement. وَلَا هَمَامَةِ نَفْسٍ إِذْ طَرَبَ فِيهَا. And by the way, this part of the khutbah, this 1 or 2 lines right now that we covered so far, and a few more lines to come, Imam Ali, he uses hard phrases. And so there's difference of opinion on what is being said exactly. But I'm trying to make it flow as much as possible. If you read the translation of Nahjul Balagha here in the English, some parts you might get a little confused. What are they trying to say? So I'm trying to make it flow and as easy to understand as I can. وَلَا هَمَامَةِ نَفْسٍ اضْطَرَبَ فِيهَا. Sometimes you don't think, and you don't have to base your work on experience, and you don't even move a muscle, but in the end, the task is so big that in the middle, you kind of second guess yourself. You question, like, what should I, wait, should I put it here? Should I put it there? How should, sometimes no, you go with confidence all the way till the end. Yeah, here it says that he that has no second guessing. For him, it is all confidence. For him, he does it all the way through without having to worry, without having to think about it, rethink it, any of that. Nope, 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 nothing at all. If we are to sum it all up, brothers and sisters, 4 things when it comes to creation, how he creates: lack of thought, lack of experience, lack of movement and motion, lack of what's the opposite of being 100% sure about something? Uncertainty. Lack of uncertainty. These 4 are how he creates. If you want to sum it all up into one phrase, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونَ. This is the command of Allah. Be and it is. This is, if you were to translate, if someone was to ask, what does it mean that Allah says, be and it is? Is he actually saying something? The answer is no, 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 no. He creates. Kun fayakun means that if he wants something to come into existence, he doesn't think, he doesn't need experience, he doesn't move a muscle, and he is not uncertain. All of this comes together, boom, something is created. That's إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونَ. In one line is this. All right. Surah Yasin, verse 82. In other words, Imam Ali is saying right from the get-go, hey people, oh person, oh human being, oh Mr. or Miss or Mrs. who is very proud of themselves, you baked a cake, mashallah. But don't you ever compare your creation and the way you create and the way you do things to the way Allah does things. It's totally different. For that cake that you just baked, mashallah, very good, but you had to go on YouTube for like 20 minutes and find all the ingredients and how the recipe works. And then after that, you had to actually bake it. And yeah, since you're in quarantine, you're like, you know what? I'll feed it to my husband or wife and my kids. Even if it turns out bad, it's fine. Trial and error, experience. And then you have to be running around in the kitchen, right? Running around in the kitchen, doing stuff. But Allah doesn't have to do none of that. And then you're like, wait a minute, did I put too much chocolate? Did I put too much chocolate frosting? Well, I mean, in my dictionary and in my books, brothers and sisters, you can never have enough chocolate. But all in all, you're asking yourself, is this enough? Is this not enough? You might dip your hand in the batter, your finger in the batter to taste it. Is it right? Is it not? And things like that. All of this, none of this applies to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أحال الأشياء لأوقاتها. Ahala means to put something off, to leave it for another time. Okay? It says when it comes to the different things out there. So this part of the khutbah started with خلق أنشأ الخلق, all of creation. Now he talks about the things out there, the objects out there, if you may. He says that when it comes to the objects and things out there that he wants to create, أحال الأشياء لأوقاتها. He put them all off and kept them for later, for their time. In other words, everything has its own time to come into existence. This is very, very key. And man, I mean, thank you, Amir al-Mu'mineen. I really like the way that this khutbah is because it's so theological. People, disbelievers, call out believers. They say, look, you guys talk about how your God is all powerful. Then why doesn't he just snap his fingers and everything comes into existence? Why does, for example, the Quran say he created the heavens and earth fi sittati ayyam, in 6 time periods, however you're gonna identify those time periods, whether it's days, whether it's cycles, whatever you're gonna translate ayyam here. 6 of those time periods are needed for God to create everything, the heavens and the earth. Why doesn't he just do it in the snap of a finger? Isn't he all powerful? Well, the answer is that the things out there have a time that they belong in, and that's when they will come into existence. So he created all of creation. Let's say he created a universe, matter itself. But now when is that giraffe going to come into existence? It has its own time. And Allah has left it for that time. When is this tree going to come into existence? Well, the tree will come into existence once that seed sprouts, grows, and matures into a tree. And so here, I don't know, I feel like here Imam Ali alayhi salam is kind of hinting at the idea of there's gradualness when it comes to creation. It doesn't happen just like that. Allah might, quote unquote, snap his fingers for all of creation to come into existence. But now this all of creation, all of matter, when is it going to yield a tree? When is it going to yield a giraffe? Yeah, that is going to happen in its time. Different objects and things will come into existence in their right time. Once again, I'm stressing on this because as we go down, there's going to be a question that's going to come up that we're going to have to come back to. So 2 points right now that I pointed out, I want you guys to remember, we're going to come back to. Number 1 was, up there in the beginning, it said, khalaq al-khalq, all of creation. Here it says, objects and things. Okay? Have they been created yet? No, they have a special time. So right now, all we have is the entire universe in its entirety. I don't even want to call it the universe, because when you say universe, it encompasses galaxies. It encompasses Earth. It encompasses trees, giraffes, as I said. I don't want to go that far. Khalaq al-khalq is very vague here, very ambiguous. It's very general. Creation in its entirety equals, I would say, matter in its entirety, let's say. Although all of creation is not limited to matter and the material realm, but here the Imam, it seems, is speaking about khalq in the material sense of it. Okay? Matter in its entirety. Has he created the giraffe and tree yet? No. Okay, so we have creation in its entirety. We have things, objects. Let's go on now. So keep these 2 in mind. We're going to come back to this. So things and objects, they have their time, but Allah it's as if He's designing now. Once again, this is very figurative, because with Allah, He doesn't have to take time to do things. But once again, when matter now has come into existence, things have to be designed. How that works with God, I'm going to be straight up honest with you, I don't know. I personally feel that one of the most beautiful things to figure out is, how does God create? Right? How does he bring into existence from nothing a human being? Or does he create matter in its entirety and let it slowly yield everything that it's supposed to yield? How does it work? You know, those acceptable forms of evolution, of these different organisms evolving into a human being. How did it work exactly in the beginning? The Quran implies creationism, which means God just created Prophet Adam. Boom, all of a sudden. So, but then we always have this idea of verses of Quran that are metaphorical and figurative. And so, are these verses literal or are they figurative? I don't know. Personally, I don't know. This is something to look into further. How does creation work? Here now, it says God hasn't created yet. Everything has its time. And so right now, God is in the design phase, as if lama or la'ama or la'ama, whichever one. I like to say la'ama. La'ama bayna mukhtalifatiha. When he started designing now the different objects that he's going to place within creation, so to speak, again, he put harmony between all of these different things. Brothers and sisters, if we look into the skies, we look into the heavens, we look into this earth, we look within ourselves, we look within the seas, we see systems in place, we find fine tuning in place. This is called, what we call this? We call it harmony. In Arabic, mula'ama. Okay? La'ama comes from the same root of mula'ama. In Farsi we say mulayamat, tala'um. In Arabic also you might have tala'um. This all means harmony, when things are working together towards a goal. But it's cool how he says it. He didn't say وَلَأَمَ بَيْنَ الْأَشْيَاءِ. He said لَأَمَ بَيْنَ مُخْتَلِفَاتِهَا. Oh my God. Oh my God. I gotta hype things up a little bit because they deserve to be hyped. Mukhtalif. What does ikhtilaf mean? We all know what ikhtilaf means, right? Ikhtilaf means difference. When we have ikhtilaf between ulama, when we have a difference of opinion between ulama, for example, and scholars, we say they have ikhtilaf. Sometimes ikhtilaf means difference of opinion. Sometimes it's even more. Even when it gets physical, it might be ikhtilaf. Okay, so things that don't get along with each other, things that are kind of might seem antithetical to each other, opposite to each other, that won't get along with each other. It says Allah that are in this universe in this creation of God. Allah says these mukhtalif things, I brought harmony between them. So, for example, darkness and light, we have both in this in this universe of creation. Yes, something is bright, something is dark. Something is day, something is night. Hot and cold. Life, death, water, fire. All these things. A tree that is green that can never be used to make a fire. All of a sudden, after a while, it is the thing that is used to make fire. Yeah. All of these things, and then it reaches a point where you find even that God has brought together in this universe, in this creation of His. He's brought together the ruh and the jism, the soul and the body. These two should not be getting along. It's like yin yang, all right? The yin yang sign, yeah, where these two cannot mix. These two, at the end of the day, these two elements, whatever they are, I don't know, they are there, yet they're not one, but they're one, and they're kind of intertwined, whatever. Allah, even better than that, has brought together the body and the soul. These two have nothing to do with each other. One is totally material, one is so lofty and high. Yet they're mixed to the point that Allah, once He adds the soul and blows the soul into the body, He says, "Fatabarakallahu ahsanul khaliqin," kind of pats Himself on the back. It's like, good job, me. Yeah, when you tell yourself you did a good job, you say, good job, me. That's what he says to himself. So here, the Imam, he doesn't just say, La ama bayn al-ashya, between things. He brought harmony between everything. He goes as far as saying, those things that you usually won't be able to bring harmony to, He brought harmony to them. All right? And so this is a miracle as if itself. وَغَرَّزَ غَرَائِزَهَا. There are some things out there that not only have to be brought together with other things and harmony is placed between them, but also what you need to do is, because once again, we now are moving towards the goal of creation. If out of this creation mankind is to come and to go to climb that ladder towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah has to start giving the tools to this human being who's on one side, the body side of him or her is an animal. Yes, we are mammals at the end of the day, our physical side. So he gives all those animals and mammals out there something called instinct, called ghariza, because that is what's going to help us physically grow and mature, so that spiritually we can also mature. غرز غرائزها. Now this is an interesting combination of words here. غرز غرائزها means he turned into instinct the instincts of those things. What does that mean? That means when you look at the essence of instinct, he's the one who gave that essence to instinct. He is what made instinct instinct. It's like saying he's the one who made two divisible. He's the one who made even numbers divisible by 2. Meaning what? It means he gave it the essence of it being divisible by 2. If something is going to be an instinct, what gave it its instinctness? Allah did. غَرَّزَ غَرَائِزَهَا. Some have translated this to mean he placed instinct in within every object that needed to have instinct, which is, I would say, mostly the animals and the mammals, the animal kingdom above and up to human beings and so on. But when I look at the wording, it says غَرَّزَ غَرَائِزَهَا. That means he gave instinctness, okay? Which is a step further. In other words, look, everything goes back to him. وَأَلْزَمَهَا أَشْبَاحَهَا. And all of the particularities of things, he gave it to them. Now, this is one of those phrases, there's big difference of opinion on. This is what I came to based on some of those mufassirin and what they say and the reasoning that they use. I thought it was the best, the ones with the best arguments. This is what they had come to. Alzamaha ashbahaha. I think if you read the English here, it won't make too much sense. I didn't like the English, I think, in this part. All right. Alzamaha ashbahaha. Everything of creation has a particularity, what sets it apart from everything else. And so even all of that he gave to each and everything out there. But still, أحال الأشياء لأوقاتها. He has left everything for its time. So we're still in the designing, apparently we're still in the designing stage of things. He's like, okay, I'm going to give this, I'm going to give this, that, and this is how I'm going to do this. Of course, I say all of this, brothers and sisters, very, very figuratively. Like this is bad to speak of Allah like this. That he's thinking what to do here and there. No, this is just for us to understand, or else he's higher than this. All right. So this part is done, if I'm not mistaken. Let me take a look. Yeah. No, there's one more line before this part is done. عَالِمًا بِهَا قَبْلَ ابْتِدَائِهَا مُحِيطًا بِحُدُودِهَا وَانْتِهَائِهَا عَارِفًا بِقَرَائِنِهَا وَأَحْنَائِهَا. This is also one of those harder parts. This is how I understand it. He did all of this. He did all of this while he had knowledge of the things before he even created them. Totally aware of the boundaries of each of them and the end of each of them, meaning the scope of each of these creatures of his and the creation of his. In other words, in and out, he's aware of everything of it. Yes, even before he creates it. Sometimes you make something and you're like, whoa, this is pretty neat. And you check it out. You turn it upside down, you look at it in and out, you might even undo it to see, whoa, how did I even do that? Here it says, Baba, he had knowledge of all of this even before he created it. Appreciating their propensities and intricacies, it says. Okay, I like that part. This part of the translation I like. All right, so he appreciates all of that. He knows all of this. Okay. So now this part ends here. And then we move to the next part. ثم أنشأ سبحانه فتق الأجواء. I'm just going to explain something and end it and not get into the details of it, but this is the point I wanted to get to here. It says ثم, then, in other words, afterwards, he created and he split open the skies. Okay? And then from here on, it talks about, just space in general. The skies and the heavens and space and all of that, and how he expanded all of that. Okay, we're not going to get into those details, but there's a question here that people have asked, and some have gotten stuck here. Personally, I think we were able to solve this issue. What is the issue? What is the problem here that some have gotten stuck on? Let's go back to those 2 points I said to keep in mind. Number one, in the beginning he said, Ansha al-khalq. He created khalq, all of creation, which personally I want to say just all of matter. Okay. And then it spoke about al-ashya, objects, things. Right? And then after he spoke about objects and things, this part of the khutbah says, thumma, then he created the heavens and space, just space, not even heavens, because it doesn't say heavens. It says ajwa. Ajwa is the plural of jav. Jav, in Farsi we say jav, right? Jav means just space, environment, surroundings, right? So here the problem is that some people have gotten stuck in, and they're like, well, how do we solve this problem? Because we know that this is going to be a problem. The issue is this. They say God spoke about how he created all of creation and then created everything, al-ashya, everything, giraffe, tree, and everything else, stars and galaxies and planets and moon and all that. Then he says, then afterwards, thumma, afterwards, after I was done with all of that, I created space itself. Question is, if you don't have a space, you can't create things. Things need space. First, you have to create the space for things and then create things. And so here they've gotten stuck and they've tried to figure out what this thumma here means. And they have some, ideas, but those are little, I personally feel like those don't do the job. Now, what I've come to and concluded in figuring out this problem is, it goes back to what I said to keep in mind. It said that he created creation. And for him, all of creation in its entirety is something different than objects and things, because that's why later on the Imam talks about objects and things. So we have khalaq al-ansha al-khalq, he created creation. After that, it speaks about things and objects. Okay? But the question is this, did Imam Ali say, after he created all of creation and matter, he created objects, for example, giraffe, for example, trees and so on? Is that what it said? Or did it say that he left those for their time to come? But yes, the way he designed them is such that they're all in harmony and so on and so forth. I want you to pay attention to this point. This is very important because this solves the riddle here. The Imam spoke about God creating what? All of creation in its entirety. Then he spoke about objects and things out there, but he didn't say, and then I created them. He says, I left them for their time. Everything has its own time. But yeah, this is what it's going to look like. This is how they're designed. And then it comes to this part that we got to right now. Thumma, then he created space itself. All right? So there is no problem here. He created all of matter. Then he designed, quote unquote, in his mind, quote unquote, pretty big quotation marks here. In his mind, he designed things and left them for the time that they're going to be created. Then he actually created space itself. Yes, and then the things that were to be created were created later. Yes, so that was very important. The fact that the Imam, he said, أَحَالَ الْأَشْيَاء لِأَوْقَاتِهَا. He put them off for later. Yeah. Yes, if the Imam had said he created all of creation in its entirety, then created objects and things, and then created space, we would have a problem. But he didn't say it like that. He said he created creation in its entirety. Then he left for later things and objects and creatures. Then he created space, and then the story goes on. Okay, so for our next session, inshallah, we will get into a little bit what the Imam says regarding the skies and space and all of that. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. And let me look and see. And I find here that we don't have any questions. And so, inshallah, we will end. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.